Hello, everybody, and welcome to the backyard. This is Kit O'Toole, and you are in Chaos and Creation in Kit's backyard. And I already see some people. Hi, Ollie. Hi, Mark. Hi, Scott. And welcome. It's a beautiful day here, nice and cool. And I'm here to tell you a little bit about the next Talk More Talk and here to tell you a bit about the fest that just happened this past weekend. And I have a very special guest that's going to help me tell you all about it because he was there too. So before we get to the fest, I just want to tell you a little bit about our show Monday night because it's going to be a little different from what we usually do. It's going to be at the usual time, Monday night, 9 o'clock Eastern, right here on this channel. But it is not going to be live. What it is we are going to do is we are welcoming a special guest. We are welcoming Owen Lang, who is the author of George Harrison in the 1970s. Some of you may already be familiar with it. And we're really looking forward to interviewing him about a book about this very important decade in George's life, both professionally and personally. However, he's in Ireland. So, quite a big time difference. So, what we decided to do is we're going to pre record it. And so we are going to pre record it. Hi, Susan. Hi, Ben. Hi, Temporary Secretary. Love that name. We are going to record it Sunday, but it will premiere at the usual time on Monday, and we will be in the comments. So, this is going to be kind of like a watching party. So meet us at the usual time Monday night, right on our channel. But we're not going to be live on screen, but we will be in the comments. So go ahead. Owen won't, but the rest of us will be. So go ahead and ask us questions, and we will be right there with you. And yes, Mark, I know that there are some opinions in there. Don't worry, we will get to those in the interview. So yeah, as I said, just too big a time difference that we just couldn't get it so we could do it live, unfortunately. Hi, Christian. Also, just want to mention that there will be some more content coming to the channel, some stuff we shot at the fest. And so be on the lookout for that in the near future, including the panel that we did at the fest with the Hi Ed, with the All Star panel that we did where we played Rack Our Brains. That was not part of the stream on the fest, but we had a blast doing this. We had Al Sussman, Chuck Gunderson, Ken Womack, and Piers Hemmingson, and it was such fun doing this. You are going to love this episode. So that is going to be up on our channel in the near future. Of course, I will let you know when that will be going up. Paperback podcasting. Hello, hello. So also um, in the future, we are going to be celebrating the 100th episode of Talk More Talk, which I cannot believe. 100 episodes. We will be planning something very special for that episode. So keep your eyes and ears open. We will tell you in the future what that will be. So that is it for news about Talk More Talk. And now let's get to that recap. And of course, if you have any questions, be sure to let us know. So let me bring on my special guest. He was also at the fest. He was on many panels and also was a godsend helping with all the recordings of all of the panels that we were on together and also on the Talk More Talk panel. You all know him. You all love him. Give it up for Two Legs, Andy Nichols. Hello. Welcome to the backyard, Andy.
Oh, hi, Kit. Nice to see you again. And man, thanks for having me on. It feels like just about like I've got my strength back and energy back from that whirlwind of a 3-day tour. And you warned me. You
I
warned
warned
me
you.
because when you go and you leave, it's not as bad. But when you're there all day, all 3 days, it was it's crazy. It's and
Exactly.
you were right. So hi Mark.
Hi,
Um,
Mark. Hi, Ethan.
oh man,
Yeah, I mean, Robert, hello, Bob. Hello, Bob. Yep, you were there too. I'm
yeah,
seeing some people who were also
yes.
at the fest.
You forgot to mention the best part of your rack our brains, though. The best part of the episode was the passing of the
Oh
microphone
my,
back and forth,
oh my God.
which you'll see when it gets posted.
Wait till you guys see it. There was also some comedy involved, and you will love it.
No, you take it. No, you take it. No, listen,
Yeah,
we people don't realize we were kind of on our own with the podcasting room, so we kind of had to fend for ourselves tech
yep.
wise and run around and get some equipment to do this. So because of where the room, and then the room was located next to the Apple Jam stage, which didn't. And then, when you watch some of these recordings, if you've watched them already, you'll see them. It's kind of you're kind of competing with the band. So when they had their Rack Our Brains, which I think was the first thing we did, right on.
Yes, it was. That was the first.
Yeah, that
Yep.
was fun. That was a lot of fun. That was baptism by fire, saying welcome to the podcast room at the fest.
Yep, this was the first time, to my knowledge, that the fest has ever had a podcasting room. And yes, it was trial by fire, to say the least. But we got it done, and it's hopefully this is the first of many fests where we're going to have our own podcast room. So definitely, yeah, we're going to tell them next time. Don't put us next to the Apple Jam stage, even though the Apple Jam stage was very cool. I mean, it was much bigger, and they had a lot of
Right.
great artists. But yeah, maybe not next to us next time. But we got it done, and you're in for a treat. So before we get to that though, I wanted to get your perspective, Andy, because this is the first time that you went to both, fests,
Yeah.
so how would you compare and contrast the two, in terms of vibes and that kind of thing?
I now I going into the Chicago one. I had heard the chit chat that the Chicago one was, the one that was kind of had a nicer vibe and it was much
Mhm.
more chill, and that might have been true. And I might be biased because of where I am, but it
Sure.
felt like there was like a little bit of a more buzz at the
Mhm.
New York Jersey Fest, and
Mhm.
maybe that's because of it. But I still think it was attended the same in terms of numbers, but that might just be logistics of the hotel size.
Yeah.
The Hyatt in Jersey City was, as I learned, and you told me weeks prior, way smaller than the Hyatt in Chicago. So maybe my initial thoughts were, gee, it felt like there was more people at the Jersey Fest. There was more
Yeah.
buzz, and that might just because there was so much more space at the Hyatt, and there was a lot of other things going on. There were conferences. There was like all kinds of other conventions going
Yeah.
on. So it was a little bit different, but my initial thoughts were that overall it still has the same kind of vibe. I mean, there's passionate Beatles fans there and that go and from all ages, from kids to people that are elderly. So that didn't really change too much. But in terms of comparing the two of them, the vibes felt the same. I just thought maybe a
Yeah.
little more energy was maybe in New York because maybe it was in New York and certainly there was a few more dealers in New York than there was in Chicago.
Yeah, that was interesting. I'm sure many of you guys saw pictures floating around on Facebook that some people took, that yeah, way fewer dealers in Chicago. And yeah, and I don't know. I think there were probably different explanations for that. I mean, of course, I think, COVID may have scared some people off, from coming. The cost, I mean, right now, I mean, we're in the midst of inflation,
Yeah,
with travel, with gas, and
everything.
everything. And of course, part of it is just the technology. I mean, dealers now can just, eBay, Discogs, you name it. They can sell
Name
their
your
stuff.
price. Yeah, you
Yep.
can name your price. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think, that there are a number of factors in that. So yeah, that was very interesting. Yeah. Ethan said fewer
Interesting.
dealers, yet somehow spent more money.
Did you really? You spent more in
Wow.
Chicago than New York? Wow. Well, I'm not too surprised.
Interesting. Now, Mark notes this is interesting. The virtual fest was handled better in Chicago. The main stage sound was mostly very good throughout, even the music.
Oh, that's good to hear because I
That's
know
good
that
to know.
I know that in Jersey people didn't they thought it wasn't that great. The quality wasn't that great.
Yeah, that's good. And yes, Scott, it's a shame they didn't. Oh, so they didn't record the streams for the breakout rooms. Really? I didn't know that.
What breakout rooms, kid?
But you mean do you mean the panel rooms? I thought they were recording that. Um,
I didn't see the camera in any of those in the paperback writer room at all.
mhm. Yeah,
I didn't
really.
see Roland. I didn't see Roland come by. Roland is the tech guy that works for the fest, and he was a big help.
Roland, yeah.
Thank you, Roland, because
He saved us.
yeah, he saved us with that. But I didn't see. I saw them walking around in the main ballroom a little bit, but never, not where anywhere else really.
Exactly. So all I see is that Fab Four Tours. Is that Susan Ryan I see? I think it is. Hello, Susan.
Hi.
She was the panel moderator for many of the panels, along with Wally Pedrazik, and they did a fabulous job. They really were. Um,
I know. Come Sunday night at that last panel, I think Wally was well knackered towards the
Yeah,
end there.
and who could blame him? So Susan said, okay, the only virtual hub room I visited was the paperback writer room. Okay, so they did stream the paperback writer room.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I thought I saw an iPhone at one point, like
Oh,
in the
held up.
corner.
Oh, maybe that was.
Okay, so I guess they were. Um, okay, so
Oh, and Susan said she watched a lot from there. Okay, so
okay.
they did have it there.
Okay, so there. Oh, okay. So Mark said the camera in the paperback writer room was initially way in the back, but they quickly moved it all the way to the right of the panel table. Yeah, that's when I saw it. I saw it at one point. It was one of our. Oh, so they were streamed but not recorded. Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. So Mark said the picture in the paperback writer room was pretty good, but the sound was weak. Wish they could have fed the mics into the unit transmitting the sound.
Into a mixer. They was just picking up regular audio from the camera, probably. So
Oh,
if you had an out going to the board, I know that's what Mark's saying. They could have done that. But
yeah.
hey,
Okay.
at least it was there.
But at least it was there. Yeah, and thank you for telling us this, because obviously we were in the midst of everything, so we didn't know what was going out on the feed. So that's good. So all right, well, first let's talk about the panels that we were on. We were on a bunch of them together, and then we were on a couple a couple that we were not together. So I mentioned the Talk More Talk panel, which was a great deal of fun. We also did a triple crossover panel with When They Was Fab with the Ed Chen, and then the two of our podcasts. So Andy, you talk a little bit about that. What we did on that.
Yeah, well, when we did the crossover one, that was kind of the first panel we were thinking about doing from the fest before we kind of were able to get on other ones. So we said, well, let's just do a show, and Ed Chen from When They Was Fab and Kit and myself, because we were going, we put our heads together about a month ago to think about, well, what kind of topics could we talk about? Were we going to do a solo? Were we going to do Beatles? And we had a couple of Zoom calls to figure out where we were going to go with it. And about a month ago, we kind of locked in with doing Beatles documentaries and the evolution of them. And about 2 weeks out, we really locked in with where we wanted to take the discussion, and bookending it with really starting with Let It Be and ending with Get Back, but then kind of pinpointing the other documentaries that came out that really fell within our fandom when we discovered the Beatles, kind of tying it all together. So for Kit, that was the complete Beatles. For Ed, that was the Braverman documentary from '75, and for myself, it was the Beatles anthology. So it was a really nice discussion to hash out and talk about the pros and cons of Beatles Apple sanctioned documentaries versus independent films. And it was really nice to kick it around. And we had a couple people, we didn't pack them in, 100 deep in the podcast room, but we had a few stalwart fans of the show, of all the shows, which was really nice. And they were there and they asked questions, and we got it done. So it was a great introduction to do that.
Yeah, and they threw out, what some of their favorite films were, and threw out a couple that were kind of like either we'd forgotten about or ones that we hadn't really like thought about as ones that one great guy Austin. Shout out to
Oh,
Austin who
Austin,
came.
yeah, great guy. Came all the way from L.A., I think.
Yeah, and came to all of our different panels, and he talked about like Wingspan being one of a documentary that really drew him in, and of course, some of us being a little older on that panel, it was really like really interesting to me, like wow, like that was but of course he was younger, and so like that being
But
his
that
introduction.
was his introduction, even though you can look at it as a flawed film now,
Yeah.
because it's so one-sided and it doesn't really include any members of Wings per se. But
Mhm.
if you were of a certain age where you watch that, that's your introduction, just like the complete Beatles was for you. So
Mhm.
it all depends on where you are when you fall into it. So those documentaries history may not judge them nicely, but for that fan, it means something to them.
Exactly. So that turned out to be a great discussion. So we did that, and then Ed and I recorded. It was his podcast. It was when they was fab, and we had. And he very nicely asked me to join in, and boy, that was a case where the technology, thank God,
Thank
all
God
came
worked.
together, because he had his co-host John Stone come, be piped in from Texas, and the audio worked. And we interviewed Ken Womack about, surprise, surprise, Mel Evans.
Mal
We interviewed,
Evans. Yeah.
and we had a really interesting conversation about that, and specifically about two radio interviews he did not long before he tragically passed, and just had a fun interview about that, and about things he was working on before his death, and got some little previews of what's
Oh,
going to come up.
we got some little nuggets. We
Yeah,
did.
we did. We did. And Andy, as I said, I mean, was just you were just great in helping with all the technical stuff, and so that will be going up soon. What's going to happen is Ed's going to upload the audio, and I'm going to upload the video onto the Talk More Talk channel. We're calling that it's like the raw video. We're calling it as nature intended. So you're going to see that, and you don't want to miss that. You don't want to miss the triple podcast too. So that's going to, those are all were great. Now we were also on together a panel that some of you may have seen that turned out to be, I think, one of the best panels of the fest, if we do say so ourselves, and it was really well attended. So Andy, tell them about that.
So yeah, that was the first panel of the weekend that I was on. And listen, I enjoyed every panel that I was on.
Yeah.
The people that were the younger the media panel with the younger fans, with Skylar and Layla. That it was, but my favorite one was the academic Beatles panel.
Mhm.
And we called it College Puddings. And that was really probably that was the first one that I was on, and that was Saturday at 2:30 in the paperback writer room, and that was with yourself, Ken Womack, Ed Chen, myself, and Karen
Too high.
Duhai. Thank
Mhm.
you, thank you.
No
And
problem.
that was really just a dream come true to finally be on a panel discussing my passion, and doing it in a way that wasn't too dry. Because we didn't want to sit there, making it too dry. And I know that's some, but listen, we had just about 40 people that were in that room,
Mhm.
and that was one of the best attended all weekend. So that was a joy, and we got to hear. I mean, Kit and Ken with their work at Monmouth, and with mine, with my history and Liverpool, what I did in Liverpool with my master's degree, and of course Karen with her program and the class that she's going to be teaching at the end of
And
this year,
linguistics. Mhm.
on linguistics.
Yeah.
Fascinating discussion of just on linguistics, and that's so important. And you
Mhm.
might think it sounds dry, but it's really not. I mean, I think there was really a lot of interest in this panel. So I'm uh,
Yep. And kudos to Wally and Susan, who, yep, Susan mentioned Academia panel. You're right. Yep, did a great job of moderating it. We got a lot of questions. And really, it was just a lot of fun. And hopefully, we'll repeat it in New Jersey or some version of it, because it really it was just a lot of interest in it. I was thrilled.
Yeah, I mean, it was a new panel, new ideas and stuff like that. And you never wonder how is this going to go over. Is it going to be too dry? Think, oh, Beatles and college stuff. What could it be about? But I think we can turnkey it and take that information and show people that it's not so highbrow, and it's not so we're not watching paint dry, sitting here analyzing scholarly. Yes, we're talking about the Beatles in a more academic tradition. That's all we're
Absolutely.
doing.
Yeah, yes, and Susan agrees it needs to be a regular thing. Absolutely. I completely agree. Yep. And so there was that panel. The
And
two of
then
us oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say
Sorry.
that. Well, that you were on one after that. The historians panel. Tell us a
The
little bit about that.
historians panel, which also is run by our fearless leader Susan Ryan, and we did this in New Jersey and repeated it here, and it was about um, about Get Back. And because really, of course, Get Back came out last, Thanksgiving, and we were all still kind of, we weren't really able to get together and talk about it in person. So we talked about Get Back and how it does or does not change Beatles history. And we had a great conversation about that, and and how, and different kinds of techniques that Peter Jackson used, and Michael Lindsay Hogg's decisions in Let It Be. Why did he choose to edit it the way he did, and the constraints he was under at the time, as opposed to Peter Jackson's, that he was able to have 8 hours to do what he did, as opposed to Michael Lindsay Hogg
Who
that he had
just
an hour
right?
and a half or whatever it was. Um, so it really was a fascinating panel. We love doing that, and that was with Susan, Kieran Duhigh, Tina Kukla, Scott Erickson, all of our good buddy, and Jim Ryan, Susan's husband. I hope I didn't leave anybody out.
No, I
um,
have I
and
have it right here. I got it right here,
okay,
Kit.
I got everybody. All
You're
right.
got yeah.
And we love doing that panel. It is such fun. Love doing it with these great historians. Scott brings the musician's perspective, and always have a terrific perspective. I see Tom Hunyadi has joined us, and he's here to make some trouble.
He says tell them who commented on. So we posted. So I recorded just about all of our panels, and I posted them to our Two Light YouTube page. And on the academic one, we had a little bit of interesting comment from, why am I blanking on his name right now? The drummer that drummed for Paul in the '80s. Why am I Chris Whitten?
Oh,
Chris
okay.
Chris Whitten
Really?
Chris Whitten commented on our academic Beatles panel, and basically was saying that academic Beatles studies really shouldn't be taken so seriously. Paul doesn't like them, and they're kind of blah blah blah. And it really, I kind of had to respond to him and say, well, actually, if they're not, because basically what he was saying was that Beatles college courses are really just turning into, professors say that Paul did this on January 8th, 1968, when Paul himself was like, no, that didn't happen. And I told him respectfully in a comment that that's not what Beatles academic coursework is.
No.
It's not. So I told him how my particular course was basically just a study into historiography, geography, linguistics, like Karen's course. It's something a little more encompassing than just who did this and who did that, to
Right.
quote Paul in the song Early Days, which is what I think people think the courses are. That's
Mhm.
not what it is. And I respectfully replied to him and told him that. And, he understood. But
Good.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. We've hit the big time, folks.
yeah.
Chris Whitten responded. Woo!
Yeah,
All
well,
right.
bingo, Susan. People don't understand what it is. Even after all, people get the degree. People think all they learned was the trivia.
Yeah,
Not, that's
that's
not
not what
it.
it is. No, no.
Yeah.
When you read or even and I'm not doing this just to plug it, but if you read Fandom and the Beatles, the book that Ken and I
Yep.
co-edited, no, we don't get into trivia. That's not what it is. Yeah. It's about the issue of fandom and the phenomenon behind it. I mean, it gets into sociology, it gets
That's
into
it.
psychology. Yeah, it's not
Sociology,
trivial.
psychology, it's all those things that make
Yeah,
up the fan. You're studying the fandom and what events and what were the economics of the day, what were the politics of the day, what were in whatever country you were in, England or the United States, what did people have, it was all about all those things tying together. I mean, I could just remember going back thinking about a lesson, if people had the disposable income, because the economies were good. I mean, that drove up record sales. That's just one slight small aspect of fandom. You know,
exactly.
post-war Britain, post-war America, economies
Mhm.
are booming, so you can do that.
Exactly. Exactly. First of all, hi Tom Green. I'm sorry I wasn't ignoring you up there. It was so good to see you this weekend. And Mark asked, what about the linguistics component? That's Karen Duhai. That is her area of interest, and she has done a lot of studies about particularly the Liverpudlian accent, which is that's an area of study all its own. And that's really her area, and linguistics is a very complicated area of study. I had to take some courses in it when I was working on my doctorate, and it's almost a science. I will
It
say.
really is, and I was discussing this with Simon, the filmmaker, the filmmaker who made Here, There, and Everywhere, about linguistics and dialects, and that no matter in America you can travel a couple 100 miles and the accents change a little bit, but depending on the regions you're in the UK, you can literally go 2 miles down the road and the accent's
Yep,
totally different.
you're right. You're
So
right.
that ties into the linguistics aspect of the Scouse accent and why it's so unique. I mean, and you go, just 10 miles down the road and it's totally different. Simon
Yeah.
Weitzman, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah,
Yep.
great guy. And
Great
check
guy.
that film out as well, too. When that was great as well.
Yeah.
Two nice guys, Simon. Awesome.
Yeah.
Great to meet them.
Yep. And Mark, yeah, it is. It's a fascinating because you hear some of the accents in some of Beatles songs. I mean, you hear some of their accents come through, and I think sometimes they even use on purpose, some of their accents. If they were speaking in the voice of a certain character or something, if they wanted to stress their class or something. So yeah, this is the thing. There's some really great areas of study that
Right. That is
yeah.
not it's not just about, like Susan's saying, that's just not about music or the history. That's a
Mhm.
big study into why.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. So see, Susan, you got to tell Mark we got to keep this panel going. There you go. So there was that one, and then we were
That was
also
Yeah, that
yep.
was Saturday. What was Did you have anything else on Saturday? I'm
Let
looking.
me
I don't
see.
I
So
don't
I
see anything else for you on
I
Saturday
don't
here.
think so. So now then you were on the collectors panel.
Right.
Yep. And so yeah, talk with one of your I don't know if Ethan is still here, but he was on that panel with you. Um
Yeah. Yeah, that
and
was Sunday afternoon. That was towards the end, and Sunday was a little bit of a quieter day. And of course,
always is.
Sunday's a quiet day, and unfortunately, at Sunday at 5 o'clock, that panel and the next one that you and I were both on were up against Mark Lewis, and so we
Yeah.
really couldn't compete with the man himself.
Mhm.
But that was the collectors panel was great. That was with Ethan, Piers Hemmingson, Ray Zirkle, Terry Crane, and myself. Andy Nichols, not Sandy Nichols. Just kidding,
Yeah,
Susan.
yeah, that's not his evil twin. That was
No.
in the program. Yeah, Sandy Nichols. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
his evil twin.
And again, Wally and Susan did a great job moderating that. And I remember kind of going into that night, though you saw, I had just picked up the Temporary Secretary 12-inch single
Oh
10 minutes before
yeah.
that panel started. And
That was so fun.
when it began, Wally started the conversation he walks up and he goes, "What's this?" And that's how the conversation started, because it's the collectors panel in that Wally fashion.
And if you didn't see it, Andy was like beaming. I mean, like he just couldn't wait. I mean, Andy was just beaming. He's like, "This is what I just got like 15 minutes ago." It was great.
It was perfect. So it was a nice panel to be on, and of course Terry Crane, wonderful guest
Oh
panelist,
yeah.
because he is the authoritative on all NEMS and the collectibles and the memorabilia and the original. I mean, he is the foremost authority on NEMS going. I mean, the
Mhm.
guy's a walking encyclopedia. Ray Zirkle too, with the
Yeah.
advertisements and stuff like that.
I finally actually got to talk to him a bit at this fest, and I got his books. Yeah, very interesting. I mean, again, this is uh such a again, another example of there's always something new, like a different area to learn about with the Beatles. I mean, that he collects advertisements about the Beatles from
Vintage,
the
like
60s.
looking at the vintage ads. I mean, it's not an aspect you think about until you look at his books.
Exactly, and really interesting guy. So I was really glad we finally got to talk. So yeah, interesting.
Ray's awesome. We had him on Two Legs, so about a year ago, maybe or less, and
Hmm.
worked at Capitol Records for a while too. So he had some great stories. To be in the industry at that time, I think he was in the industry. He was working there right around 1978, between 78 and 80. So his
Hmm.
firsthand experiences about that time, especially when John Lennon was killed, and the demand for product at that time, and
Yeah.
what things like that. I mean, let's check out our episode with Ray a while back, and he goes into all that, and he shows the books, and yeah, just again, just another avenue that you tend to overlook,
Hmm.
and actually stop and think, because you get inundated with ads, especially back then. But to look at them all and see
Yep.
how they were promoted, look at the difference of how they were advertised in the 60s or a little later.
Hmm. Hmm. And let's see, and then yeah, and Piers Hemmingson, if you're
Oh,
not familiar
right.
with him, he's awesome. He that's another case of, like, he has really gotten into an area that I certainly didn't know a lot about before. I'm sure many of the Beatles in Canada, their history in Canada. I mean, he has a collection that you won't believe, um, of all their Canadian releases, and of course John Lennon's connections
To
to
Canada.
Canada. And he's also just the classiest guy you'll ever want to meet. Um,
Piers's books are they're like Lewis and esque. They're like giant tomes, and
yeah,
he had an advanced copy of his latest book, which is coming out in 2023, part two, and it's like
it's like
walking
this.
around. It's like walking around with this huge thing. And there's two volumes of it. And it's just on Canada.
Yep, exactly. And then Ethan's, this was great.
His
Ethan's
his fellow
mom,
his fellow countrymen. Yes.
yeah, and fellow countrymen. And Ethan's mom came in during the panel triumphantly bringing in, it was something that I
Oh,
think Peter Asher signed.
yes. Yeah, it was a
Um,
Peter and Gordon record.
yeah, Peter and Gordon record, and of course Ethan has an incredible collection too. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a vinyl
For
guy
Right, he was
like
he was the
you.
youngest. Yeah, he was the youngest guy on that panel, and he's done very well for himself in his short time. So he earned his right to be on that panel.
He sure
Absolutely.
did, absolutely. Somebody asked, oh, M. Burley, did you get a fair price on that temporary secretary?
I think so. I've seen it
Mhm.
go for about $100 or less, and I can say that I got it for under that. So I was happy. I was thinking,
Mhm.
and the gentleman that had it there all weekend, and it was just, as Kid has said, as a Veteran Fest attendee, it's like it's a whirlwind. You want to go
Yep.
to the merchandise. You want to talk to people. You want to see presentations in the main ballroom. You want to see Mark Lewis, and
You just
you want
can't
to,
do
and you
everything.
can't do it all. So I just happened, and I was in that marketplace authors area a lot. And I just didn't see it until Sunday at like 5 o'clock. And I'm like, has that been there all weekend? And the guy's like, yeah. I'm like, I'll be right back. I have to go to an ATM
Yep, I
because
hear
these
you.
these 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 newer vendors don't take electronic payment yet. They're stuck in the old days. They want cash. I'm like, you take card or Venmo? No. I'm like, all right, hold that. I'll be right back.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So right after that, then we were on the media panel together, and that was the final. Not only the final panel of that day, it was the final panel of the whole fest.
Yeah.
And we were there. So that was with the two of us, Ken Womack, because of course he has a podcast, Everything Fab Four, and Ethan, of course, because he has Fans on the Run, and then Layla Ortiz and Skylar Moody, because they both have popular TikTok channels.
And they and I believe they do a George Harrison podcast
Oh,
too,
that's
or
right. They just started a George Harrison podcast. You're right. You're right. Um,
and Ed
and
Chen.
and Ed Chen, of course, Ed Chen with when they was Fab. So, and we had a really interesting conversation, and in fact, you can see that conversation up on the Two Legs channel. About why we do what we do. And that the whole issue about money and the fact
Mm.
that none of us are getting rich
That was
from
an
doing it.
interesting that was an interesting point in the conversation that Wally, I think, brought up the
Yeah.
monetary aspect of it. And the panel had some split answers on that. Some
Hmm.
people wanted to see themselves compensated, others did not.
Yeah.
Ed Chen, I think, leaned towards Ed Chen, and Ken were like, yeah, if you can monetize it and make money and do it legally, go for it.
Yeah.
Whereas myself and Ethan were like, no, we're not really in it for the money.
Yeah, and I was kind of in the middle saying, no, I don't want to,
However, right,
make, but for covering costs of production,
right.
that's, that'd be okay. But yeah, nobody's doing this to make a lot of money. I mean,
No,
no way.
but
So, but
I think it's fair to say if you make enough to just cover what it costs for you to produce
right,
your show,
that's okay.
that's kind of meeting in the middle.
Yeah. So it was really, yeah, that turned into a really fascinating conversation. And we talked about other things too. But that, that turned into, interesting conversation. We got, for the time slot we had a pretty good turnout. I mean, for, as I said,
Yeah, and there
what
were
we were
probably
up against.
we probably had a dozen people or so. And
Hmm.
I was telling a kid before we went on the air, like we don't really care. I mean, that was one of the stresses of preparing for a fest. We don't really care if there's 0 people in the panel room, discussion room, or there's 100. It doesn't change the fact that you have to prepare for a discussion and know your topic.
You bet. Absolutely. And with, moderators like Wally and Susan, you gotta be on your toes
Yeah. So
for sure.
Susan mentions don't forget the Gen Z panel, right? Which is
Yes.
the future, which Ethan and Skylar
Yeah.
and
And
Layla.
Layla.
And that one was on that one was before the collectors panel. I'm just looking here, else was on there.
Yeah, I
Yeah, it
didn't
was
get
with
to
though
see it.
I couldn't see that one either, but again, an important one because that's the future. And how do we incorporate younger people into events like this and keep them um relevant and keep them interested in buying into it as time
Hmm.
moves on, which was kind of
And yeah,
a running theme throughout the weekend, really.
you bet. And it's really important. And you're right, Rob. Skylar's really nice. She's so enthusiastic, as is Layla. And yeah, they're the future. No doubt about it. And I'm really glad that we're welcoming these
I
younger
have
people into the
to.
fandom. We have to, because yeah, they're the ones that are gonna keep this going.
Right,
Um,
but Susan makes a good point here because there's way too much gatekeeping among some older fans, and
you bet.
there's some people that I forget who I was having a conversation with over the weekend, but somebody said, might even with you, Susan, I forget, somebody said that like, some people feel that have been coming to the fest for decades that it's like this is ours and nobody else's, and they're kind of selfish about it.
Yeah, I mean, and even when I started, many years ago, and I encountered a little bit of that early on, and so it's important that we encourage younger people. So it's so great, to see them,
And I don't
coming
see.
in.
There's the thing. Like they were clearly along with Ethan, were the youngest people, like of the featured people that were speaking. They were there now, but there's plenty of young people that like the Beatles.
Yeah,
So it's not like it's not. So and Ken and Womack and I were discussing this over the weekend too. There's plenty of young fans that like the Beatles, but you don't see that same turnout at a fest like this where it's largely dominated by the first or second generation fandom.
right. Yep, exactly. So I hope that hope we'll see more and more as time goes on. I said, but am I at Friar Park? I don't see any gnomes. I actually, there is actually a
Oh,
gnome.
we got to show the
I
gnome, kid.
Yeah, there,
I'm gonna
you,
I'm gonna pull a Hunyadi and grab the gnome from the All Things Must Pass box, and I'll just dangle him across the screen.
yep. I mean, really, it's really yeah. I do have one. He's not in wonderful shape, unfortunately. He's very old, but we do have one. But yeah, don't start with the gnomes.
So,
Oh, it said
Kit,
Mark.
aside from your panels, what actually did you get a chance to see
Well,
discussed?
not a whole. Well, I did see um, Ken Womack's talk on Friday night for the sneak preview of his book that's coming out next year on Mal Evans, and he played a
Ah,
part of the talk that Mel gave at Beatlefest 75. And it was really fascinating to hear because you could hear the crowd just cheering when he came on. I mean, can't you imagine? I mean, to be there when Mel Evans walked on stage. I mean, the crowd just went nuts. And he was I mean, he sounded very humble. Kind of like, I can't believe, I'm getting this reception. And he only played about 5 minutes of the tape, but he just talked about what it was like to uh be there and um be in this
Well,
world.
you
uh
got to touch a little piece of history this past weekend too.
that was the other thing I wanted to share. So, okay, guys,
This
this
is incredible. Listen to this.
okay, so Sunday, Peter Hicks, who is also working on the Mal Evans book with Ken, um, he, came up to my table and introduced himself, and he brought a really nice woman named Georgiana, and Georgiana was a pen pal of Mal's in the '60s. She met him, and I think I'm not sure if it was in New York. I can't remember precisely, where it was. I think, wanting to meet the Beatles, and ended up, meeting him. And Mal was really like, he was really nice to a lot of the fans and all, and they kind of hit it off. And I think he was also trying to put the moves on her.
I wasn't sure if you were going to say it or not.
I think that was another thing, but they really became friends. I mean, it really didn't end up being that, and they were pen pals for, oh gosh, I mean, years. And so she was telling me this, and she was saying how moved she was. She'd never been to a fest before, and she was saying how moved she was that we all cared so much about Mal, and we were all still so fond of him, and how excited she was about the book. And she had been helping, a bit with the book,
Right.
and she had a Ziploc with her, a Ziploc bag with all the correspondence that she had with Mal, because she was giving it to Ken, for the book. And clearly, she had obviously, you know, Ken had gained her trust
Sure.
to do that. I mean, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
Yep. And so they were both wearing these T-shirts that had a doodle of Mal's on it. And it was a self-portrait. No, it was, a silly kind of self-portrait. And they had T-shirts made of it. And so they were pointing this out. And so then um, Peter said, well, she has the letter that this doodle's from. Do you want to see it? And I said, okay. And so, thinking that it was going to be a copy of the letter, or it was going to be laminated or something.
Right.
She reaches into and there it is. It's the actual letter. And I was in shock, and I just thought, shouldn't I have gloves on for this?
First thing I asked you, I'm like, was it in plastic? Were you wearing gloves? And Kit's like, nope, I just held it.
Yeah. And so she's like, here you go. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I'm holding this letter from Mel, and he had sketched this, and there was the doodle during the Sergeant Pepper sessions at like 2 a.m. or something. He wrote this, and there he was saying, hi Georgiana, I've just sketched this, and I can't wait to see you, and I'm getting I promised you a picture of me with the boys, and I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to do it soon. And I mean, just chit chat, and then at the end he said, oh, P.S. Next time you see me, I'll have a mustache. Um, and you'll find out if mustaches tickle.
Read into that however you wish.
Yep. And so I mean, I just like, and there's his handwriting, and it was pristine. I mean, this letter looked like it could have been written yesterday. I mean, she obviously kept all this correspondence.
Yeah, and
In,
so
in
she I think somebody asked in the comments, do you think that she Georgiana made copies of the correspondence before giving it to Ken Womack? She either did, but Ken and I spoke over the weekend, and he's told me he's digitized and archived all of his
yes,
everything.
yes,
So
yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't. But then Ken said he'll just go ahead and do it. But I would think that she might have
Oh, I would imagine.
before handing those over. I would get them scanned in and made copies. But I'm sure Ken was going to make copies anyway.
I think I'm guessing that he's going to digitize this and then give it back to her. I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, he's
Absolutely.
not keeping this permanently. I
No.
mean, I sure as hell wouldn't want to give those up. I mean, but I mean, I can't believe.
So nice of her to give them to imagine if like you a Beatle fan and you had something like that and you wanted to part with it for research for an author. That's a big ask.
Yep.
That's a big trust of faith to just say, okay, here you go. I'm going to let this out.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, and of course, Ken is trustworthy. I mean,
of course, but
still, I mean, but yeah, Susan said, "Ooh, bad boy mail." Yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe. Yeah, I thought I was like, "Ooh,
now Junior, behave yourself."
But I mean, I just couldn't believe I was holding this, and I just said, God, thank you for sharing that.
I wish I got a photo of you holding it.
I know. It would have been quite a photo because I would have been like,
that could have been your new profile pic.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, I couldn't believe it. Yeah,
that was was that Sunday?
That was Sunday. That was Sunday. It was. She was so sweet. I'm friends with her on Facebook, and she just couldn't have been sweeter. And she's just so thrilled. She said Mel was just a sweet, sweet guy, and just she treasured her friendship with him. So.
Yeah, I think it's just it was a great insight into the weekend, into learning more about what all the work that Ken has done into this, promoting it. I mean, and I think obviously Mal is so in the forefront now of many Beatles fans since Get Back, because he was like the other star of the whole of the documentary. Not that we didn't already know it already, but he's so omnipresent in people's minds now, and because of Ken's book, I mean, I haven't looked forward to a book like this probably since Mark Lewison, aside from the ones that Kid has worked on with Ken Womack anyway.
Good answer. Good answer. Yeah, good recovery, Andy. The only other thing that I wanted to mention, and then Andy, I want you to tell about any of the talks you got to see, was meeting Jay Bergen.
And you got to meet him. Yeah, great photo.
Yep, what a nice guy. He of course was John Lennon's lawyer. And some of you may have gotten to see his talks. Really fascinating guy. He represented John Lennon in the case against Morris Levy during that whole thing when Morris released that Roots album. And what a sweet, sweet guy. I mean, he just seemed thrilled to be there. He has a book out called, I think it's what is it?
The Mobster, the Lawyer,
Lennon, something.
Yeah, Lennon, the Mobster, and the Lawyer.
Something, yeah. And really just an interesting guy, but just seemed thrilled to be there. I mean, everybody loved him, and he even he went up and introduced himself to me. I think it was because Ken Michaels interviewed him, and he said they had talked about me, which I hope that's
because Ken had him on his YouTube channel a month or two ago, and that's my first. And he interviewed him. Thank you, Susan. Lennon, the Mobster, and the Lawyer.
Thank you. Okay, we had all the words just in the wrong order.
Right, or the Lobster, as my co-host called it.
The Lobster, yeah, that's
right. Yeah, but what a great new story for Lennon lore. I mean, I know we know all about the lawsuit, but in this amount of detail, and for a book to come out so long after the fact, it is the most refreshing Lennon perspective in a book in years that I've read. I read the book in a weekend. It was a page turner.
I can't wait to see it. And he read it, and he said his publisher said to him, do you really want to include all the transcripts? And he said, yeah, that's That's the most interesting part.
Is that what he told you, Kit, when you were
Yeah,
talking to him?
yeah. Because I said that. I said, this is a really interesting, story. And he said, well, they were hesitant to include the transcripts. And he said, but that's,
You had to.
yeah. I mean, but what a nice, nice man. We really had a great chance. We talked a bit, and he just seemed so happy to be there. And I hope he'll be in New Jersey because
Yo, yeah,
really,
yeah.
you definitely want to see him. Yeah, Tom just wrote ha ha ha.
Susan, I heard about the Tommy James book that he wrote, but I haven't read it yet. But he talked about it, but I have not read that one yet. But yeah, Morris Levy. I mean, that guy he was a shyster.
Yeah, yeah,
He was a shyster, and Jay covers it all in the book.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's if you haven't got it yet, I mean, please get. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, yeah, and so yeah, so really fascinating story, and just such a pleasure to meet him. Yeah, yeah, he was crazy. Yeah,
Yeah, he
sure.
really was, and the ties to the mob were real. It's hence the title of the book.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
just reading it, you'll see, Kit, when you read it, just see the
Mhm.
testimony reprinted. I mean, I mean, the book is great, but the testimony was essential to the book, just to
Sure.
know, the routines and how John prepared to testify, and the other musicians that were called to testify. Jesse Ed Davis was called to testify.
Wow.
Yeah. What's his? I can't remember the writer. Wrote for Rolling Stone.
Jan Wenner?
No, not Jan
No.
Wenner. The other one. Oh God, I can't think of his name. But it'll come to me in a second. But
Yeah.
he was called to the stand to testify, and he wrote for Rolling Stone at the time, and
Mhm.
getting expertise,
Okay.
testimony. So it's fascinating. Dave
Mhm.
Marsh. Dave Marsh.
Dave
That's who it
Marsh.
was.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. Yep. Yeah, Mark. Yep. Dave Marsh.
Yes, Dave Marsh.
Yeah. Wow. Fascinating. Oh, Scott McKinley's. I'm texting with Jay Bergen right now. He's blushing, I'm sure. Yeah, tell him.
Put
He was a hit. He
Yeah,
was
I
an
didn't get a
absolute hit.
chance to meet him. I did bring my book to get him to get it signed. I just, my
Mhm.
paths didn't cross
Yep.
with him. I saw him occasionally throughout the weekend in the hotel, but again, as you said, kid, it's just
Mhm.
nonstop.
Yep. So, M. Burley's Beetle Ed. I didn't put it together. Oh, Beetle Ed, good to see you. Thanks for dropping by the backyard. Good to see you. So Andy, what talks did you get to in the midst of all this madness? What talks did you get to
Uh,
see?
Not too many, but
Yeah.
but I saw most of the one that I wanted to see, and I knew I wouldn't be able to see him on Sunday because of our panels. So Saturday, I walked into the main ballroom to see Mark's discussion on the Beatles photographs from that were just centered on August, the month of August, all throughout 1960 to 1969. So
Mhm.
he picked a couple of photos, all that were all taken, in the month of August from 1960 all the way through 69. Some are famous, some are not so famous.
Mhm.
And it was obviously, with everything that Mark does, is just top notch professionalism, well researched and well thought out. And he had a really cool couple photos of the Beatles in 1966 backstage. He had one cool photo of John and Paul looking at each other from a show in '66, just amidst the chaos backstage, just looking at each other, one that you don't see too often. And here in this context, in this presentation, you really get to see that it's just always down to the two of them, eyeball to eyeball, sitting there doing their thing.
Mhm.
um and obviously the showing some pictures of the Beatles in '67. Of course, August '67 is when Brian Epstein passes away, and you see a couple of photos of the Beatles when they first find out the news, and they're devastated. But he had a couple of pictures from a few hours before they were told the news about Brian Epstein, sitting with the Maharishi, and they're all smiling and they're all sitting, and then just a
Wow.
couple hours later they get the news that he
Wow.
passed. So that attention to detail um, was awesome. And
Wow.
I didn't I walked in around 1964, I think, so I missed the first few minutes, but I saw the rest of it, and it was incredible,
My gosh.
as everything. And that was I didn't see a whole lot because we were running around, but I knew I had to see that one.
Oh, sure. Wow, that's fascinating. What a what a change. I mean, of
and
course,
why
changed
the month
everything.
of August too? Like I know he showed the Richard Avedon photos from '67. You know the psychedelic looking ones that everybody had kind of pinned up. You know the ones that talking about Kit, and he should like that one was the one of John was in Look magazine. It's the psychedelic kind of one.
Oh
You know,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep.
so he showed those photos, which were taken in '67. He also showed those photos, what they looked like touched up without all the psychedelic kind of colors on them, and how the Beatles were just bare and not wearing any shirts in them.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I can't think of any time where the Beatles were actually all shirtless. And that was one time where they were all shirtless, but when those photos were just taken by them, totally just, and then before they were kind of all cleaned up and published with that kind of psychedelic look to them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. That's good. I'm sorry, I was distracted for a second. Georgiana just was messaging me saying how much she's enjoying the the recap. So hi, Georgiana.
Oh, hi,
Thank you
Georgiana.
again for sharing the letter with me. I'll tell you that was the you gave me one of the thrills of of my life at the fest. So thank you so much for doing that, and thank you for watching. My goodness, yeah, she's wonderful. She really
Yeah,
is. So yep. So sorry about that. Didn't mean
no
to.
problem.
I heard this buzz, and I'm like, I'm getting a
Who is
message.
this?
What is
No,
this?
Farrell says he loved Lewis's presentation. There was a photo with George looking surly as they posed with Shirley Temple. I don't want to meet her. I don't even like any of her films.
Ouch! Ouch! Oh my goodness.
Another photo that he showed before was the photos of John and the Beatles actually right in Chicago in '66, right after the Bigger Than Jesus moment, and the photos of John and Brian Epstein and kind of and dealing with all the fallout of that comment, which was in Chicago, which was in August of '66. So that was interesting to be in the same city.
Yeah, yes, I did see. I think I came in on that part. I think I saw that, and yeah, wasn't that interesting? Yeah, to be there and that part, and of course, interesting how Mark pointed out, John didn't exactly apologize,
No,
and yeah, and that's true. He it
he
was kind
apologized for everybody being upset, but
upset.
he didn't really apologize.
Yeah, and and it was, I mean, he was misquoted. I mean, like the excerpt was printed like if the whole context of it wasn't printed. I mean, it was
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean it was kind of out of context. And
It
so I
was, and
mean,
especially back then. I mean, we Yanks are so super sensitive about that kind of stuff, whereas
mhm,
our friends across the pond kind of just take it as it comes, and they don't take themselves too seriously.
right.
They
Yep,
don't, and having lived over there, I can attest to that. So, I'd
exactly.
like to think we've evolved a little bit more, but I don't think I'm not sure if we really have. But
Yep,
it's
exactly.
super super sensitive, and even 50, even over 50 years ago.
Yep, exactly. So, but yeah, that picture, and I had seen that picture before of him sitting there, but yeah, I mean, you just
Yeah.
the look on his face. I mean, you're just like, you just know he's like, oh God. Yeah. And now, as Mark said, yeah, and now it's all this.
And now
Yeah.
it's all, and now, and yeah, and Mark said the same thing.
Exactly. I mean, it just was, but yeah, kind of interesting because yeah, and the hotel. I forget the name of the hotel. I don't think it exists anymore. The where
Probably
he
not. But
made it,
yeah,
but
I just liked how Mark picked 1 month and stayed and then documented, a couple of photos from 1 month
yeah.
throughout the time, the whole of the '60s. I wish I could have seen some of the pictures that he showed in '60 and '61. I'm sure there's some great Hamburg, Liverpool photos in
Oh
there.
yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
as time marches on, that's becoming my favorite, period to study,
Hmm.
is the Hamburg Liverpool era because it's so, not as well documented and well known. And of course, we've got that great, did you get that book, kid? The Hamburg Beatles book?
Yes. Oh, awesome. That is the
Oh,
definitive
God. It's such
definitive book.
another tome that'll, make your back ache.
Oh my God, yeah, when that thing arrived, it was funk on my porch.
Yeah.
Oh
But
my
yeah.
worth it.
Yeah,
Just
love that. I think moving forward, like that period, 60, 61, 62 is just is so because there's so much still to discover. It's still, because everything from 64 is so well known on. It's just going back to that really early history and getting these stories and getting them documented.
Exactly. Oh, so important because I mean, well, and actually that came up a bit in our discussion about documentaries because, in anthology and all, you could tell that when George and Paul and Ringo talked about it, they only want to talk about it so much,
Yeah.
because, but I mean, for God's sake, yes, we know you did drugs and had sex and everything, we know,
Right. Right.
it's the secret's out,
Right.
but it's such an important period. I mean, it was where they learned to, they formed their stage presence, they tightened their act, and when they came back to Liverpool, they were a different band. I mean, so it's really important that that period be documented.
Were you
Yeah.
on the panel where the question was posed? If you could go back to one concert in the Beatles' history, what would it be? Did,
That was the Talk More Talk panel.
right.
I think, yeah, yep. So, Chuck asked that.
That
Mhm.
was a great question.
That was a good question. Yeah,
Oh, Robert Logan answered your question. The hotel
Astor.
was the
That's
Astor
right.
Tower. There you
You're
go.
right. That's it. Yep, I couldn't remember the name. Yep, you are
What
correct, sir.
what gig would you have picked? What concert or era did you pick for your answer?
I picked the Cavern, but
Yes.
not the like the early Cavern days, but like when they
63.
yeah. Yeah, like right before they really, hit it big. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, when they were
Uh
yeah, because I mean, you got to see them at the Cavern.
yeah. I
I
mean,
mean,
you gotta
come
you
on.
gotta see them. You gotta see them there. I mean, I didn't it wasn't my panel, but I was thinking in my head if I had to answer this, I have a gig that I would want to go see. And it was a gig before Ringo was in the Beatles, actually, believe it or not.
Oh wow.
December 10th, 1961, at the Litherland Town Hall.
Yes.
And why? Because it was one of the first shows they played back in Liverpool after Hamburg, after Germany. And from everybody that I interviewed and researched with in Liverpool,
Mhm.
that is the night that the Beatles became the Beatles.
Yep.
True. That's from what I'm told. And I would
Yep.
love to go back and see that specific show, even though Ringo wasn't in the band yet.
Yep. That would be an interesting gig to see too. I love it. Yeah. Susan said I always wanted to be a Cavern girl.
Well, you could have worked with Cilla Black and been the coat checker girl.
There you go. There you go. And Mark said the Cavern was hot and sweaty. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And your point is,
Right.
I'm just
Mark
kidding.
asked, would anybody be posting discussion about the documentaries?
hmm
Kit.
Um, let me. Oh wait, where's the? William would be posting the discussion about the. Yes. We're trying to figure out how to do it because it's our three podcasts. So so I don't know if we're all three gonna do it or we haven't really decided, but it will be posted. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
I mean, I don't mind sharing it. It's going to be our next episode of Two Legs.
Oh yeah,
So
that's right.
it's
That's
going to
right.
be
You said that.
it's going to be our next episode of Two Legs, which is going to drop on Saturday. So
Great.
it's the crossover episode. So that's probably your first chance to see that because Talk More Talk is going to save it for a while, and I think
Yes.
When They Was Fab is going to save it for a while. So we're going to drop it first, and that's going to be on our usual time slot, 10 a.m. Eastern Saturday for the
Mhm.
crossover episode. So it'll be posted then on audio and video platforms.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. As I said, on Talk More Talk, there's going to, and you'll hear more about this on our next show, but the schedule is going to be a little goofy for the next few weeks because of Labor Day, the Labor Day holiday and some other stuff. So you're going to see stuff from the fest coming out in dribs and drabs. So don't worry, if you will see it. I assure you, we shot Andy shot, and again, he was just a star this weekend. Really, I mean, both with shooting all the footage and also on the panels and everything. I mean, you just couldn't have done this without him. You
No,
were
no.
awesome.
You brought the goods. I just helped you set it all up. That you had the right stuff.
Well, well, really. I mean, you were just a godsend. I mean, I never could have done all that, and also with all the crazy technical things we had,
Yeah.
some of the limitations. I mean, really.
Yeah, having us getting it bled out with the Apple Jam band, and I think you can hear some of that in the crossover episode, and I think even on When They Was Fab, you'll hear that.
Hmm.
You'll hear a little bit of the. You can actually hear the songs coming through a little bit, but you can hear the audio, you can hear the questions, you can hear Kit, you can hear
Great,
Ken, and
great.
you can hear. Thank God we got that speaker from Roland because if we didn't have that speaker, whew, the polka
The
band,
polka
yes,
band. Hey
yes.
guys, you may hear a polka version of Helter Skelter.
Oh
You
man,
haven't lived until you've heard that. And
was that?
I'm friends with, yeah, Sergeant Sauerkraut. I'm friends with members of the band. So I mean,
Those guys'
they're really
outfits were
sweet.
cracking me up too. Polka dots everywhere. I mean, and hats. That was like, dude,
Yep, Danny
that was hysterical.
Donuts. I
Yeah,
mean, they're really sweet. They're really sweet. But yeah, when they started tearing it, and I mean, they were getting it.
yeah. Like, are we gonna be able to do this in this room?
Yeah,
We'll see.
I mean, when they were at the look on Piers's face when they were doing Helter Skelter was just, I mean, poor Piers.
I did. I mean, I loved the Apple Jam stage setup. It was much more spacious than it
It
was in New
was.
Jersey.
Oh yeah, it looked great.
It was.
Just,
It
just
was. It was just next to. It was next to where the podcast room was.
yep. I mean, it was. Ollie said, "I might not want to live after hearing a polka Helter Skelter."
You never know, Ollie.
It kind of works. It
You,
kind of.
if you're in the listen, if you're at the fest, it works.
It
It's the beat,
does.
It's
You just have to be a little open minded. Actually, during one of the those sessions, Billy J. Kramer was on, and he sounded great.
yeah. I saw some of the video that I shot on our highlight video on our channel. He was up there with
Hmm.
Scott Erickson playing.
Yep,
I call your name, just him and
they
Scott.
sounded terrific.
Yeah. Speaking of
Yep.
Billy J, I rode the shuttle back to the airport on Monday morning. Just me and Billy J.
No kidding. Oh my God, did you have a chat with him?
It was early in the morning, we were just having our coffee. I just said, he had a couple bags. I'm like, you need some help, whatever. But there was,
Mhm.
it was just the two of us at 8 o'clock in the morning on Monday, us both going back to O'Hare,
Yep,
so, but it was funny just to, and I know he's a veteran attendee
yep.
and maybe some people are tired of that, but I don't know. I think he's a great guy and a great
Oh
guest. And, because of the history and the connections, you're never going to have that, so I know he's a veteran attendee, and maybe that's a turnoff for some people, but I think, people like that who have firsthand working experience with the Beatles and Epstein, you can't buy that.
yeah, yeah. When you talk about 8 in the morning and all, I will, I didn't see it this time because, well, this was before you could check out, on your phone with the app and all. But yeah, years before, I'll never forget Monday morning, coming down and seeing the line at the checkout desk and like with poor Terry Hemmert and all the, I mean, everybody just looked like the Walking Dead. I mean, it was really funny. I mean, because of course nobody gets any sleep. I mean,
No,
it's well, you know now, and I mean everybody was in line, and yeah, it just, as I said, it was the Walking Dead, and poor
because you're just zombies trying to check out.
you
And
know.
you really don't get a lot of sleep. You're right. I mean, I've tried, and
Mhm.
and I really I know Ken Womack spoke at like something like 11:45 on Friday night,
Yeah, because he had technical issues.
and I'm like, I would
Yeah.
have loved to have seen that, but I was just I was just knackered. I'm like, I gotta try to sleep, but then you can't because the under the stairs jammers are jamming till 2 or 3 in the morning, which is
I
great.
know. I don't know how they do it. And our pal Astro Jer
Yes,
told me,
he
yeah,
was there.
they are just, they I think they got, he and his pals got very little sleep, and I don't know how they did it. Like, I definitely, oh yes, thank you, Mark, for mentioning Lawrence Juber.
Oh yeah,
Terrific as always.
always.
He was great. He was, of course, on our Talk More Talk in New Jersey. I mean, what can you say? He's just an incredible guitarist, and just sounded wonderful as always.
Always, whether
Mhm.
it's New Jersey or Chicago, bumped into him a few times, and just a great gentleman, and always willing to share his stories, and you learn a little bit more about these people when you learn beyond what they've done with the Beatles, and that's, I mean, the Beatles stuff is great, or so whatever they've done, but learning what else they've done and what else they've played on, especially in the case of Lawrence Juber, who played on like The Spy Who Loved Me.
Yeah.
Learning that was incredible.
Yeah, I had no idea of that.
Or that he played on The Rainbow Connection from the Muppet movie.
Oh, that just killed me when he said that. Oh my God, that just, yeah. I couldn't. That was one. I was just so touched when I
It's
found
worth
that
it
out.
to hear them, what they've done, aside from their association with the Beatles, what they've done with their careers before and after is always a fascinating story, whether it's Billy J or Peter Asher or any of them.
Yep. Well, and I'll tell you, I mean, at the New Jersey Fest when he talked about Good Night Tonight, and I asked him about that. I mean, I was just so thrilled, and that he did that in like one take. I mean, that whole solo, and wow.
Yeah.
I mean, how cool is that? I mean, unbelievable. Yeah, as Mark said, Juber must have 6 hands. He sure sounds like it, doesn't he? I mean, that's amazing.
So wrapping up the fest on Sunday night, I didn't go to the end of the concert, but did you go to it?
Yes, I did. I went to that. I went to just the last part of it, and I want to give a shout out to Glenn Burtnick, who was really missed at Liverpool. He's the bassist, and he wasn't able to make it this year. He wasn't feeling well, so just want to say get well, and really missed you. But yeah, the band sounded great. But Greg Bissonette, who of course was one of the main guests, who was percussionist for the All-Star Band. Oh my God, guys, he was fabulous. I mean, he did, these extended drum solos on like Slow Down and other, and some of the other stuff. Oh, wow. I mean, he was, yeah, right, Susan. Wasn't he amazing? I mean, that was just, that just added an extra kick to the band. And and everybody was dancing, and it was just such fun. And then of course the tradition, all of us guests and all got to go on stage and sing Hey Jude, and that's always a bittersweet moment because of course it's the end of the fest.
That's right.
But it was a lot of it was a lot of fun. And it's kind of a, it's sad, but it's fun to be up there with friends. But yeah, Greg really was fantastic.
Killed it. Was the Ringo impersonator also jamming in the aisles?
I think I saw him when I was up on stage. I think I saw him in the front row. Yeah, Ringer Star. That was your first Ringer Star encounter.
I'm like, look at this guy. Tracksuit, the hair, the jacket. I'm like, this guy's pulling it off.
I mean, he really does look like him, doesn't he?
He pulls it off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right, Susan. It's incredible. Like as soon as they as soon as the song ends, then the hotel staff comes in and starts cleaning up and is like, okay, leave.
Overdone. Yeah.
Like come on, give us a minute. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. The Ringer Star actually does drum for one of the Apple Jam bands. And he sings too, I think.
Ali says Ringer Star convinced Al Jardine.
Did he really? Oh,
if you're looking quick and you don't know,
yeah. And a couple of people, I think, because there are, of course, I think I have a picture with Ringer Star somewhere. I think some.
And how many of your non-Beatle friends would see that and go, "Oh, Kit met Ringo Starr"?
I know. I mean, really, and I think there are pictures of him floating around from this fest, and people were like, "Oh my God, Ringo showed up." No, he's not going to show up.
No autographs.
Yep. Oh man, that is so fun. But yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, exactly, Susan.
Susan mentions, does anybody remember Mike Olsterdorf, the guy who used to be a Paul lookalike? He passed a number of years ago, but he fooled people too.
Yes, I remember him. Yeah, he was he really did look like, it was like Paul from,
I was like, which era of Paul? Which era of Paul did he look like?
Okay. Yep, it was like late 80s, early 90s, like longer hair.
The mullet.
kind of the mullet, yeah, and
Okay.
nice guy. He was a nice guy. I don't remember if he sang or anything though. I because every time I saw him, he was just kind of standing around. Yeah, kind of like yeah, but he did for a while. He really did look like him. But yeah, Sir Paul of Livermore. That's right. That's what he called himself. That's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was Andy. Yeah. Sadly, passed away some years ago. But yeah, there were some characters like that. But yeah, I don't remember if he sang or anything. But he just would
Yeah.
stand around and really. There was a guy that used to come who looked exactly like Mick Jagger. Now I don't think, and it was like Mick Jagger from like the '80s. You know, and I'm not sure if yeah, I didn't see him this year. He used to come every year, and I don't know if it was intentional. I think maybe he just really looked like him, but it was really scary. I mean, it's like, holy
Oh,
cow.
these conventions, or I should say, these conferences, as our
Com-
friend Wally said,
conference, yes.
they're conferences now. They draw all types, don't they?
Exactly. I mean, it's really funny, but yeah, didn't see Mick this year. But oh wow. Susan said one year the real Ron Wood showed up in New York, but I bet people didn't believe it was really him. Really? Ron Wood showed up? My God.
Must have been
That's
looking for Dutch imports.
yeah, that's right. My God, that's crazy. My
So
goodness. So, yeah, it was a whirlwind weekend, but it was so much fun. It was so great seeing everybody in person again after almost 3 years. My gosh. And really just a blast. And I was so glad Andy that you came. You finally came to Chicago. I hope that will not be your last
no,
one.
no, I'm in, and my co-host is in for both. Oh, both fests next year are already booked. Like as I see in the
Woo!
little book
Excellent.
here, Jersey Fest is March 31st to April 2nd at the same place, and August 11th through the 13th. So I'm sure we'll be booking soon,
Absolutely.
and
Oh, good.
both legs will be in attendance for both fests.
Both legs. Excellent. Oh, right. That's great. Well, and hopefully next April, all the Talk More Talkers will be there because we'll also be celebrating our 5th anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah, can't believe it. And yeah, coming up on 100 shows and then next year, 5th anniversary. So
Congratulations, you guys. I remember
uh,
when you launched.
can't believe it. Yeah, 2018. We launched when our first show was about Egypt Station.
Egypt Station. That's right.
Yep,
Yes, it
that's when we
was.
launched.
I remember like seeing it come across my YouTube thing. You might like this channel. Talk No Talk or Solo Beatles. I'm like, I'm gonna check this out.
Little did you know that you'd be kind of an adjunct
Yeah. It's like it there and
member.
it offshoots all these different branches, right?
Yep. I mean, just really, really crazy. But yep, we're all one big community.
Absolutely.
Oh man, but thank you so much for coming on. I knew, you saw stuff I didn't, I saw stuff you didn't, and we figured both of us could fill everybody in on the fun of this past weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on. It was such a special occasion to, go to Chicago, which I hadn't really been before, and I know I need to see Chicago proper,
Yeah, you got to come earlier
which
next
which
time.
which my co-host is going to give me the tour.
Good.
And again, this is the first time where I've gone all 3 days to both fests. I mean, I've gone to the New York one. I went to that. I mean, I'd go to a day or two. I've
Mhm.
gone all 3 days both times, and boy, the first time in New Jersey, I just went to go, and it was exhausting. Now going and speaking,
Yep.
it's all and staying and getting the whole experience. It goes by, and as soon as it starts, it ends.
Yep. You got it. That's it. Yeah, I mean by Sunday you're like what happened?
It's true. You're like, I just got here Friday morning,
Yep.
and I got there late. Some people get there Wednesday, Thursday. Some of the people that are more involved, but it's like it's a production. And
It is.
I was so honored and pleased to be a part of it this time. As a kid who would just go and buy those Dutch imports in
That's
the
right.
'90s. and watch these people to be now like that. It was just a pinch me moment. It really
I
was.
know. Well, you're now in, yeah, and you can never get out now.
It's like Godfather 3. Once, just when I thought I was out, they pull me
Pull you
back
back
in.
in. That's right, whether you like it or not. So next Two Legs episode will be dropping
Saturday.
Saturday. Okay. So everybody be on the lookout for that. And as I said, Monday, Talk More Talk will be at the usual time, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here. But remember, it will not be live, but we will be in the comments chatting. So it'll be like a watching party. And our guest will be Owen Lang. So do not miss it. It will be a really fun episode. And thank you, all of you, for tuning in for Chaos and Creation in Kit's Backyard. Hopefully, there will be at least one more of these, depending on how the weather holds up. Usually in Chicago, we get maybe one more good month, in September. So
And then
fingers
that's it.
crossed. Fingers
Yeah.
crossed. So thank you, Andy, for joining me in the yard, and we will both see you soon. Peace and
Bye.
love. Bye.